We now know how Russiagate got started, and we know that it was all a lie started by the Hillary Clinton campaign. That the Hillary Clinton campaign realized she was in trouble because of her email scandal, which had broken in 2015 in the wake of Benghazi. We found these emails of hers that were weird, and people were like, what server was that on, and so on. And it created a problem for her all the way up to Election Day 2016.
But I could see them and hear them in my ear, and they said, Tulsi Gabbard, you're coming out and criticizing Hillary Clinton and her foreign policy record. Aren't you afraid of what she'll do to you? He asked me this on live television on MSNBC. And you're laughing. I laughed too. I was like, no, I am not afraid of what Hillary Clinton can do to me.
Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard going after Hillary Clinton is like unleashing a duo armed with sharp words and relentless honesty against a political figure who believed she had faced everything already, and from campaign mistakes to years of scandals, they cover every angle, breaking down her carefully crafted image under the pressure of direct attacks that reveal the contradictions, controversies, and failures that kept her from securing the power she strongly pursued, turning this into more than simple criticism. It becomes a complete takedown delivered with sharp humor and raw intensity.
Of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Megyn Kelly's sharp commentary slices straight through the polished facade of establishment politics, spotlighting Hillary Clinton's struggle to genuinely connect with everyday people despite decades in the public eye. She strips away the layers of scripted lines and practiced charm to expose a politician more focused on appearances than authenticity. Megyn ridicules the constant efforts to reinvent her image, flipping every campaign slogan into a punchline about wasted chances and misplaced focus.
He stole his first term as president. These absolute liars who run around trying to act like they're the protectors of democracy completely ruined it, tried to undermine it at every turn and at the highest levels with lies, with out-and-out lies that were really serious, and changed foreign policy and changed the course of history in this country in Trump's presidency. And there must be accountability. There has to be actual criminal accountability for those who lied. And I can't wait to see this administration do it.
Tulsi Gabbard delivers a distinctive insider's perspective, tearing apart Hillary Clinton's foreign policy record with sharp precision. From controversial moves in the Middle East to close connections with powerful elites, Tulsi lays bare a history filled with contradictions and ethical compromises. Her critique highlights how Hillary's actions frequently conflicted with the very principles she claimed to uphold, portraying her as a politician driven more by ambition and influence than genuine progress.
The fact that all of these pieces fit quite seamlessly together, creating a very clear timeline that shifted from before the election, the intelligence community almost uniformly saying essentially that Russia is trying to sow discord in the US election, but has no preference for one candidate over another. And then all of a sudden, Trump wins the election, surprising many people, both here and abroad, as we've learned in later documents that we've reviewed, that throughout that campaign, Russia believed that Hillary Clinton would win the election.
Together, Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard launch a blistering takedown that exposes the weaknesses in Hillary Clinton's facade, the scandals, the blunders, and the ongoing inability to build real trust. Their combined voices strip away the carefully crafted narrative, unveiling a political journey marked more by controversy and squandered opportunities than by true accomplishments. It's an unrelenting roast that allows no space for excuses or damage control, a raw reckoning with someone who once appeared untouchable, but now stands completely unraveled.
And our audience knows this, and you guys, but just for the record, let's play SOT 10.
I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president. I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
We're trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Hillary Clinton's political career has been a showcase of contradictions. A turbulent ride marked by lofty expectations and devastating letdowns. Tulsi Gabbard doesn't just call out her mistakes. She shines a light on the gap between the polished public persona and the messy reality hidden behind the curtain. It's the story of a politician who perfected the skill of remaining in the spotlight, yet consistently fell short when it came to truly earning the trust and support of the very people she claimed to serve.
So what is so concerning about what Hillary Clinton is doing here is she is not only calling me a traitor, she is not only trying to smear my character, she's sending a warning out to every veteran, every single American, anyone who stands up against the warmongering foreign policies that really are her legacy, that have been so destructive and costly to my brothers and sisters in uniform.
Megyn Kelly's critique zeroes in on Hillary Clinton's communication style, polished but empty, rehearsed yet devoid of authenticity. She paints a striking picture of a politician whose words often sounded scripted, as though read from a teleprompter crafted to sway focus groups rather than to spark real connection. Kelly underscores how Hillary's campaign speeches, packed with soaring promises and ambitious visions, frequently rang hollow to voters exhausted by political doublespeak. This wasn't the voice of a leader igniting a movement, but of a figure desperately clinging to relevance in a rapidly shifting political landscape. At the same time, Tulsi Gabbard's insider perspective adds an even sharper edge to the takedown, as she methodically dissects Hillary's foreign policy record with the precision of someone seasoned in the realities of global stakes. Tulsi confronts the controversies head-on, from Libya's destabilization to the turmoil in Syria, laying bare how Hillary's choices often unleashed consequences far removed from the campaign stage. Her analysis reveals a repeated pattern of interventionist strategies that contradicted the very principles of peace and diplomacy Hillary professed to champion. Together, they argue, this balancing act only deepened public mistrust, exposing the cracks in a carefully manufactured facade.
And as she got closer to Election Day, she decided to concoct two lies about Donald Trump to distract from her email scandal. She got the Steele dossier through this Fusion GPS company that her campaign paid, and she got this group CrowdStrike, which was the one responsible for the hack into that. That's the one that said that the Russians hacked the DNC.
Megyn Kelly doesn't hold back when exposing Hillary Clinton's attempts to control the narrative through media influence. She spotlights how the Clinton campaign strategically shaped coverage and worked to silence dissent, creating an environment where criticism was swiftly met with backlash. This wasn't the transparent, accountable leadership voters expected. It was a tightly controlled PR machine focused on shielding a fragile image at any cost. Tulsi Gabbard sharpens the critique further by addressing Hillary's failure to adapt to the shifting political climate. She underscores how the campaign overlooked the growing frustration of working-class voters, dismissing struggles that opponents later exploited to weaken Hillary's platform and even sway her own base into doubt. The takedown also zeroes in on the infamous email scandal, a turning point that both Kelly and Tulsi argue went far beyond a minor misstep. Tulsi stresses its deeper meaning, framing it as a symbol of recurring questionable judgment and ethical lapses that defined Hillary's political career.
When I resigned as vice chair of the DNC in 2016, specifically so that I could campaign against Hillary Clinton in that Democratic primary.
Intro 8. Megyn Kelly underscores the glaring contradictions in Hillary Clinton's career, noting that while she built her rise on breaking glass ceilings, her campaign tactics often conflicted with the unity and authenticity expected from a feminist icon. Tulsi Gabbard reinforces this by pointing out the missed opportunities to form genuine coalitions, as Hillary instead leaned on calculated political moves that ended up alienating potential allies. Together, their roast goes beyond simply listing failures. It dismantles the myth of inevitability that surrounded Hillary's candidacy, revealing how her run was marred by strategic blunders, overconfidence, and a dangerous underestimation of her opponents. Stripping away the media's hype, they expose a campaign that struggled to resonate with a diverse and skeptical electorate. Kelly also highlights Hillary's polarizing legacy, reminding viewers that while she enjoys strong loyalty from some, she also embodies deep political frustration and disillusionment for many. Tulsi echoes this point, framing Hillary's career as a cautionary tale about the limits of ambition when it isn't paired with genuine responsiveness to the public's concerns.
One of the pieces that Glenn and I were getting close to in the discussion was the Hillary piece of this. And the evidence, because that is, they do name a couple of names in this appendix on who came up with this scam. And the name that we keep seeing over and over, as one of them at least, was Julianne Smith. Schellenberger writes Julianne. It's Julianne. He writes, the alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor.
The conclusion strikes with force and clarity. Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard's combined critique frames Hillary Clinton not as a casualty of circumstance, but as the chief architect of her own political downfall. They contend that her legacy will be defined less by her trailblazing milestones and more by the trust she squandered, the opportunities she let slip, and the public image that ultimately collapsed under relentless scrutiny. This isn't just a roast. It's a reckoning, urging people to look past myths and media spin to confront the complicated truths about one of America's most examined political figures. Kelly and Tulsi drive home the point that in politics, as in life, authenticity and accountability carry more weight than perfectly crafted speeches or polished optics. Their dissection cuts into the very fabric of Hillary's political persona, revealing a leader who tried to be everything to everyone, but in the end became nothing to anyone.
Also, in this latest House report, they talk about how they also in the House, this is the House in 2020, pointing out that the ICA of 2017 ignored evidence that Putin seemed to be protecting Hillary Clinton in a couple of ways. It did not mention, for example, that Putin chose not to leak info he appeared to have on Hillary Clinton's health, including that she suffered from psycho-emotional problems and was on daily tranquilizers. We don't know whether that's true. We know that Putin appeared to have that intel in his pocket and chose not.
Leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy. against the American people.
Megyn Kelly unmasks the calculated nature of Hillary Clinton's public persona, portraying her as a politician who built a carefully engineered image meant to resonate widely, but ultimately connected with very few. The polished speeches, rehearsed displays of empathy, and endless attempts at relatability felt less like authenticity and more like hollow performance. Kelly's critique drives home the point that when optics replace sincerity, voters can sense it, and that disconnect is politically fatal. Tulsi Gabbard sharpens the takedown with her insider lens, going beyond surface critiques to dissect the deeper flaws in Hillary's political strategy, especially in foreign policy. From interventionist legacies to cozy ties with powerful elites, Tulsi exposes the consequences of choices that destabilized regions and contradicted the values Hillary claimed to champion. Kelly underscores how Hillary's ascent often came at the cost of compromise, while Tulsi points out how failing to stand firm on key issues drained away voter trust. Together, their critique paints a picture of a leader more invested in political maneuvering than genuine conviction, a fatal flaw that shadowed her entire career.
So the Russians were able to hack Leonard, and that's where they saw the plan. And we now have in the Durham Annex, like full screen grabs of the Russian memos that the Dutch got their hands on and leaked to us, where the Russians are recounting exactly what they saw Leonard discussing about this Hillary Clinton fan and emissary, Julianne Smith, and how they were going to stop Trump, undermine Trump, but most importantly, distract from Hillary's email scandal.
Megyn Kelly dissects Hillary Clinton's media strategy, highlighting how her campaign's relentless efforts to control the narrative often backfired and created an air of defensiveness instead of openness. She points out how attempts to silence dissent and manipulate coverage eroded credibility, while Tulsi Gabbard stresses that in an era where people demand transparency, such tactics only deepened public skepticism and mistrust. A central theme in their critique zeroes in on Hillary's disconnect with working-class voters who felt abandoned and overlooked. Kelly explains how the campaign's polished messaging rarely addressed real economic struggles, leaving a void that opponents capitalized on, while Tulsi underscores that the failure to genuinely engage these communities widened the gap between Hillary and those she aspired to lead. When it comes to the infamous email scandal, Kelly ridicules the clumsy damage control strategies that transformed a moment that called for accountability into a drawn-out spectacle of denial and confusion, while Tulsi frames it as symbolic of a broader pattern of poor judgment and ethical missteps that permanently undermined her credibility. Their roast also digs into the contradictions of Hillary's stance on women's rights, exposing how her actions and alliances often undercut the very feminist principles she claimed to embody.
This woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
Megyn Kelly highlights the tension between Hillary Clinton's feminist rhetoric and the political tactics that at times undermined female rivals, exposing contradictions that weakened what could have been a truly unifying message. Tulsi Gabbard reinforces this point, noting that Hillary often chose political pragmatism over solidarity, diluting her appeal. As the critique deepens, Kelly and Tulsi dismantle the myth of inevitability that surrounded Hillary's rise, arguing that her campaign's overconfidence left her blind to real threats and the shifting political landscape. Kelly's sharp observations paint the picture of a candidate who underestimated grassroots movements and the public's hunger for authentic change, while Tulsi agrees that this miscalculation was a critical flaw in an era demanding substance over establishment politics. The roast concludes with a striking assessment of Hillary's legacy, Kelly and Tulsi emphasize that true political success is not simply about breaking barriers, but about building genuine connections with the people who matter most. In the end, Hillary Clinton's journey stands as both a cautionary tale and a guidepost, underscoring that leadership requires authenticity, accountability, and the ability to unite rather than divide.